Funeral Blues by W. H. Auden. Poetry Project by Anna Roberts. Stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Silence the pianos, and with muffled drum, bring out the coffin, let the mourners come. Let aeroplanes circle, moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, he is dead. Put great crape bows round the white necks of the public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. He was my north, my south, my east and west, my working week and my Sunday rest, my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out, everyone. Pack up the moon and dismantle the sun. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood, for nothing now can ever come to any good. This poem is filled with description that creates mood and invokes emotion, with never directly stating how the narrator is feeling, but through beautiful imagery. There are three major types of imagery that are used. The first is auditory, the second is visual, and the third is abstract. The auditory imagery is created through the use of sound devices. These include harsh consonants, alliteration, and end rhyme. Here in the poem, we can see, represented by the orange lines, the harsh consonant sounds. The blue lines represent the softer consonant sounds. The mix of these harsh and soft tones create a pattern of bitter, sad, to bitter once more. The tone reflects the words of the poem. Alliteration is also used with the hard C's and K's throughout, M's and W's in the third stanza, and P's in the last stanza. The use of alliteration also contributes to the bitter, sad, bitter theme, but the repetition forces the reader to feel again and again the sorrow of the narrator. Auditory imagery is also used with word choice. Words like barking, muffled, moaning, and my talk, my song contribute to the pattern of a loud and bitter to once again sad tone. These words let you hear exactly what is happening, and you can easily place yourself in the situation with the narrator, and you are more susceptible to empathizing and feeling sad. The second use of imagery is visual imagery. The visual imagery, like the auditory, allows yourself to be placed fully into the situation and feel as though you are part of the pain. It is especially strong in the first two stanzas. As you can see, different uses of imagery, such as juicy bone, bring out the coffin, airplane circle moaning, scribbling on the sky, round the white necks of doves, and black cotton gloves. The last use of imagery is abstract imagery. The last two stanzas are filled with abstract imagery. This sort of signifies a change of the narrator observing the scene to the reader observing the personal emotions of the narrator himself. The phrases used create an intense connection and allow us to experience the emotion in a poetic and intimate manner. The third stanza clearly demonstrates what the deceased meant to the narrator, and the phrases are more profound than just saying, "He meant so much to me." In the last stanza, the narrator is telling us that the world is nothing anymore. The stars, the sun, the ocean, the world essentially has gone, and what is left needs to be gone as well, for the world cannot continue without this person who has died. This poem is overall very heartbreaking and sorrowful. However, the interesting part about it is that it was originally written satirically. It was written by W. H. Auden for a song for a play called The Ascent of F6. The last two stanzas are not included in this form, those were added later. However, knowing that part of this was satirical, and the other part is not, creates a very new meaning to the poem overall. The satirical portion was written in the context of how great men are idolized and lionized in death. With that in mind, one can perhaps come to the conclusion that this poem could have one meaning with two separate sections. The first section, the first two stanzas, has a more upbeat feel to it. The end rhyme that we mentioned earlier contributes to this. The poem feels almost jovial and satirical in the beginning. The second section is when a much more melancholy and poetic mourning is felt. Perhaps the poem takes on a deeper meaning, grief for the public and grief for the private. In our society, we often publicly mourn and make grand gestures for public figures who have passed away. We name buildings after them, close streets for their funeral procession, write statuses, dedicate songs and movies, and get journalistic statements from other celebrities. But we do not make the same gestures for the friend of a friend, or even a grandparent who has passed. One death becomes a show, while the other is a tangible grief that plagues and haunts those who mourn, but mean nothing to the public. This poem, on the surface, is filled with sadness and despair, but at a closer look, we can see that it is more than a heartfelt lament, but a meaningful statement to the empathy of society.